So this was the other day. I downloaded the demo. I think I maybe tried it for like 10, 15 minutes. I was like, I don't like any of these controls. This is weird. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I would buy it. I would play it for like 20 minutes, get frustrated, and probably just never play it again. So I'm just like, nah.
So, Alex, during the time frame when I was out of power, I had very limited options when it came to playing stuff, but one thing I did do was play some game demos.
Some people might ask how you played anything without power.
Called a generator.
Good use of it.
Limited generator power to play demos. So I talked a little bit about Prince of Persia, Two Crowns, but one of the other ones that I played while I was at it was one where I've played the game before in its entirety twice, but I thought that I would play the demo just to see what the demo was like. And the demo I'm speaking about is Thief: The Lockdown. I've played the 2016 Thief a couple times. I like it a lot, but I had never actually played the demo. Well, spoiler alert, the demo is basically just the first level of the game. There's nothing really that special about it. It's basically just the first level of the game where you're in the lockdown and you have to go through it. So that's it. And it got me to thinking about the limitations of game demos, but also what you really want them to achieve. I think demos need to be able to explain the mechanics of the game pretty well. So
Yeah.
in this, it did a fine job.
Yeah, there are a bunch of things demos should ideally do.
Yes.
And one of the most important ones, I think, is explaining how to play the game.
Yes, and making it accessible enough so that you can do so. Because I have seen a few other examples where I might understand the mechanics, but you made it very complicated. Another one that I just tried the other day was called Our Adventuring Guild, and I tried the demo for that. And what I found was that there was just a lot of exposition, and they tried to throw a lot of mechanics at me very quickly. Like, what happens is that every time they introduce something, there were like 3 or 4 of those like frames that come up that like go over like the intricacies of like, when this happens, you can do this action and this tab over to the next screen. And
Yeah. Some games like to really front load you.
yeah.
I personally, I don't like when a game's like, here's an exposition dump that's more information about this game than you're going to need right now when you're trying to just learn how to play the basics.
Right, and so there are like scenes between each one of those conflicts, because it's kind of a tactics-based grid combat kind of game, where they'll go into this big exposition of just text, and then the other person says a bunch of text, and they're trying to like introduce all these characters, and they get to the town and everything. It's like, okay, I didn't need that. I really like, I want to know how to play the game. I want the story to be introduced. Like, I like the idea of introducing the story. You do not have to explain the entirety of it. I really, I need the basics. Like, what is the storyline going to be? What are the themes of the game? Like, I want to kind of get a good representation of what this world looks like, and how it feels, like, aesthetically, and just a basic idea of what the story is going to present. I do not need to know the backstories of every character in the game, or even half of them. I don't need to know it, not important right now. The point is that I want to be engaged enough that I want to try picking up the full game. The other thing that I'd ask for is that it alludes to larger things, but it doesn't necessarily show them. Because, for instance, going back to Thief, one of the things that just playing the lockdown doesn't really do is explain to you that there's a much larger hub area of this game that interconnects multiple missions. And the only way that they really allude to that is when you get to the clock tower and look out over the city and go, oh, I guess there's a city there. But, you know, you don't really get the impression that that might even be explorable, because their individual mission structure belies that. So I think that there's just a few things that demos really have to hit on, and I'm trying to think if there's like a good example of a demo that really does this. Probably the best one is probably Nimrod's, right? Like, I think...
Yeah, Nimrod's had a really good demo.
Yeah, because...
Didn't you play 20 hours of it?
I played over 10. Yeah, like
Yeah.
12 or 13.
And the thing about that was it introduced the game to you, and it was such a simple game
Yeah.
that had a lot of complexity that you could add to it, and a lot of different ways to play it, that the core loop was explained and super easy to understand, and then it's just alterations of that core loop because it is a Vampire Survivors like.
Right.
Or whatever we're calling that genre.
Bullet Heavens? I think we're calling it Bullet Heavens, yeah.
You know, it's a very simple premise with a lot of ability to customize it and change it and make each run feel very different.
Yes.
But the demo gave you pretty much everything you needed to learn the game and the core, and got you into the gameplay fast so that you could go, yeah, this is good. This feels nice,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, they introduced the basic mechanics of the game very quickly, which it
As
does a good
opposed
job.
to
Mhm.
when you were doing Next Fest, what was the Space Trucker one? Whatever that one was called?
Oh,
Star Trucker?
yeah, Star Trucker.
And that one was like,
We played Star Trucker.
oh, driving. Oh, now you have to fix all the things in your... Like, the first thing you do isn't even driving it. It's actually fixing a leak in your hull.
I have to go outside the truck, and I have to fix a patch in my truck, and then get back into the truck.
So instead of front-loading it with something fun or interesting, they front-loaded it with going, here are some survival mechanics you're going to need in your trucking game.
Yeah, can you imagine how much more engaging it would have been if they just start you out on essentially the space trek where you're just driving the truck? Like, the first scene is where you're just driving the truck in somewhere, and so now you're like, oh, okay, so now you get used to the truck controls immediately. That would have been helpful.
Now, on the other side, I know we've talked about these demos before. You did try the demo for Pacific Drive.
I did.
Did you think the intro to it was pretty solid?
The thing about it is that I think that they did a pretty good job of introducing the game. And one of the reasons why they did a good job of it was because you start off with just the driving part. Like, they start you off and you're driving in the car, and you're going into this zone that they're basically saying, turn back now, you know, and you're going in, and stuff that becomes more and more paranormal is happening. So when I was talking about that checklist, what have they done? Well, they're introducing the story and they're presenting themes. And they're doing that really, really quickly, like right out of the game.
Yeah.
And you know that you're going to be in the car. Yeah.
And they're very strong themes, too.
Yes, they are. And you also get the idea that you're going to be in this car. That this is a central mechanic of the game, is being in this car. It also does a good job of alluding to larger things. Because you get this impression that there's much larger stuff going on. There's giant, there's the giant sky beams in the sky that are coming down on you. There are all these creatures, these mechanical creatures that are around that you don't understand at the beginning. Storms that are...
I will say...
Yeah.
I didn't play the demo, but I did buy it. And I have played like 12 hours Pacific Drive.
Okay, right.
They introduced their core mechanics really quick. The driving, and then after you get sucked through the rift or whatever it is, all the finding the stuff mechanics and putting the tire on the car and filling up the gas, all of that stuff that they did is really indicative of the game itself.
Right.
And so I think for them, they did a really good job, like, being like, here's the premise, here's here's like your core gameplay loop.
Yes.
And like, this is the stuff you're gonna get. And it was interesting, it was simple to understand, and got you right into the thick of it, like right away with the driving. That was the first thing you did, and that's what you do most of the game. I think demos can be really good when they do things right. I think, as you were saying before, exposition, lore dumps, and stuff like that generally turn me off with a demo.
Yeah.
I don't need all the backstory for your game world at the front of your game. Introduce it to me slowly.
Right, exactly. Pacific Drive actually does do a good job of that too, because it's all on the CB. Like, it's just all on the radio as you're driving.
You don't have to read it all. You do have stuff you can read.
Yep. Yeah.
But the people that are interacting with the NPCs that you never see on the CB are talking to you and to each other and kind of alluding to things that have happened.
Right.
But it's done fairly well, and the voice acting is really good.
Yeah. No, the voice acting is really good. I was impressed with its presentation value. The place where Pacific Drive lost me was really in the way it frames its like mission design, where if
think
something
it's
goes wrong,
fine.
yeah.
I think, especially because you can actually go into the settings and make it so that like you don't lose all your stuff if you fail a mission.
You can?
Yeah.
Oh.
You can make it so that if you die, you don't lose your shit.
Oh shit, that would have changed everything for me.
Yeah.
I wish they had told me that. I wish they had told me that.
You would still have to repair your car.
Right. That's fine.
But you wouldn't lose anything. Like there's a couple different sliders that either you lose all your stuff as normal, or you don't lose crafted items, for instance.
Okay.
Or the other one is that you just lose nothing.
Yeah.
And then even if you do lose stuff, or if you get your car destroyed and you die or whatever like that, you can go back into that same zone you were in and find the remnant of your remnant. So you can find the car's ghost essentially and loot it.
Oh, gotcha.
So
that would have been good to know.
Yeah, I figured if you had known that, you wouldn't have complained so heavily about that one thing.
I wouldn't have complained so heavily about it. Why didn't you just tell me about the slider? Damn it! I probably would have gotten into.
Okay, here's another thing demos need. Demos need to have making sure you can go in there.
Yes.
And change settings and check settings. For instance, this case, difficulty. I'm not sure if the demo had difficulty sliders. That could have been an oversight.
I don't know.
I would have looked. I have looked since I have the game. But being able to change your settings is super important.
Yes.
I've played a number of demos now, and just not even demo set. The settings for the game, for some reason, default to like 4K.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm like, why are you setting this game in 4K? First of all, set it in 1080p if you're going to set it at a default. But also, like, can you not just have it set to native settings for your resolution on your desktop? Because that's not hard. And I don't want to... I always go in, the first things I do when I start up any game or any demo is I go in to the settings for display and graphics and change them. I turn off motion blur. I make sure it's got full screen or borderless full screen, preferably. Mm-hmm. I turn off my FPS limit because my computer doesn't. My computer goes, fuck you, I can handle it.
Right.
And I generally try to max the settings out if I can because, again, my computer can handle that.
Yeah, a couple of the things that I usually do in a demo, first of all, is I usually play with the sound settings because a lot of times the music is just blaring.
Way too loud.
Way too loud. Way over anything else that's sound related. And then the other thing that I usually do is check on controls because sometimes they will support controllers, sometimes they will not, and I want to know if they have it. I once saw, I don't even remember what game it was, but I saw one game where they were like, controllers are recommended, and also it's partial controller support. So, I'm like, okay, this is a fascinating combination of thoughts.
All right then.
Okay.
I prefer also when games let you rebind the controls.
Mm-hmm.
Like remapping is super accessibility friendly, but also just really nice. I did that earlier for a game that had WASD as use for like arrow functionality.
Sure.
But it didn't have to be, so I also have WASD for movement as normal. But then anything that I would need, like a left or right, up or down arrow, I just bound to the arrow keys because they're separate bindings.
Oh, certainly, yeah.
Because my brain does not go up down as WD or WS.
WS, yeah.
So it takes me longer to go WASD up down, up left down right.
Right.
Instead of using actual arrow keys. Because I go, oh yes, the up arrow is up, down arrow is down. That's much more native to my brain. So I rebound that to a game and tried that. It's like, all right, I have to remember that that's what I did, but it's much faster.
Right, exactly. I think that Pacific Drive even, I think, did a pretty good job of explaining the mechanics, because I understood the mechanics itself. The one problem I had is I just didn't like the structure of it, like I was mentioning before. But to be honest with you, it presented an honest depiction of what the game was. And I can't really cite it for not doing that, because I think that I understood what the game was. It just wasn't really appealing.
And then your biggest complaint was if you die, You lose all the things in that run.
Yeah,
And that is the thing that you can change. So I feel
That's
like
good.
if you were to play it again,
Shit,
knowing
now
that,
maybe I
you'd
have to
probably
play it.
enjoy it a bit more.
because I was liking it. I was liking it.
Yeah.
I was having fun.
Pacific
Yeah.
Drive specifically makes me go, I want more survival games that have cars I can mod. now."
Yeah. Having
Because
that
I
old
think that was
station
cool.
wagon was great.
Mhm.
I love that
Mhm.
part. But, I think it presented itself honestly, and that is important that, a demo presents the game in an honest depiction of what you're going to get with the full game.
Yeah.
Just in general. You don't want to have these, refunded constantly because it's not what the demo showed you.
Right, and I'd rather have a demo than buy a game and have to refund it.
Right, exactly. And I'm pretty sure the devs would also appreciate that because
Yeah, and I personally, I know people are like, oh, you can't really judge a game if you haven't played it for that long. It's like, yes, I can. I can
Right.
play a game for 20 minutes and go, I'm really not vibing with the controls or how this is presenting itself.
Yeah,
I tried, I don't remember the name of it, but I tried another game that sounded interesting, looked interesting because I was watching someone else do a trial of it. And I was like, that looks interesting. They've got a demo. Cool, I'll try it. So this was the other day. I downloaded the demo. I think I maybe tried it for like 10, 15 minutes. I was like, I don't like any of these controls. This is weird. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I would buy it. I would play it for like 20 minutes, get frustrated, and probably just never play it again. So I'm just like, nah.
Nah. Yeah, no, that's the thing is that getting the mechanics down and being able to present them to people and make them understand it and make it feel good when you're playing it is such a big component. Probably the most important one of demos. One example of a game that I did play the demo of and then bought. So and feel like the finished game is very representative of it was On Guard. On Guard is a really fun game that focuses on this combat, and it's in a very bright, colorful setting, and has a very tongue-in-cheek kind of sense of humor, and has really fun combat where you get to like kick buckets onto people's heads and like kick them into stuff. That demo of like that first level is indicative of the entirety of the game. I played 3 or 4 of the levels in from that. And it's the same thing. So it did a good job of explaining what the game's going to be. And presenting what the mechanics are in the game. I pretty much have encountered the same kind of mechanics. So, good job on them. I have also experienced a few where I'm like, what is going on? Is this going to be like what the larger game was? I had tried, like the revamp that they did of System Shock as the demo, where they do the medical bay part, and I felt claustrophobic through a lot of that. But then when I think about it, it's like, what if, like, having played a little bit of, like, System Shock 2 and, other games from, like, Irrational and stuff, I know that this will open up at some point, but the demo's not really presenting that to me right now. It feels very claustrophobic the way that it's giving it to me. And if I just got a taste of, like, something a little larger in scope where it didn't feel so hemmed in, I probably would be vibing with it. But as it stands, I'm going through these narrow corridors, down these back alleys, going down stuff, and it just feels just way too much like a labyrinthine maze that's tricky to get around. So I haven't picked that up. Your demos are going to do a good job if they can accurately represent the game, but mostly it's that. I need to be able to understand what the themes of the game are. I need to understand some of the story, but it just doesn't have to be very heavy.
And you need to be able to be familiar with how the gameplay's core, like, loop is going to be, I feel.
That's the thing. Like you're saying, if you can't explain the core mechanics of the game with a demo, then it's not really going to work. You have to do that.
Right, which is why I say again, Pacific Drive did a great job.
Yes.
And I was like, from seeing it played and then you talking about it, I was like, I feel like I'll enjoy this game. I'll try it, even though I have to buy it because I couldn't. They took the demo away before I got a chance to play it, even though I had downloaded it.
Right.
So I was like,
Right.
But on the other side of that, I tried Everspace 2 because I had Everspace, and Everspace 2 has a demo, and I was like, all right, cool. I understood how everything worked.
Yes.
And I was like, I don't know if this is something I would stick with, though. So I still have the demo, and I put a little bit of time into it.
Right.
But I was like, I would have to play more of the demo to really see how I feel about it,
Yeah. That's
to
the
be able to want to buy it.
Yeah, that's the other thing too that's a little tricky with, because Everspace 2 is a very open world sort of game for space.
Yeah.
I feel like in open world, like sandboxy kind of games, it's hard to do demos in general because you have to present a very small portion of it, but you're presenting a small portion of a game that's meant to be very expansive in the way it's represented.
Yeah.
So,
But you can still do that well. Like the demo gives you like the beginning of the story and lets
Sure.
you do a bunch of things and learn how the combat and all the flight mechanics and all that stuff work. And that's important.
yeah,
I don't need the giant open world to be like, oh, I like how big the world is and all the places I can go. Because if I don't vibe with those core mechanics of flying around and shooting stuff and
Sure.
how that works, then I'm not going to enjoy it when it opens up so I can do it in more places.
right, exactly.
On the side note to that, not a demo, but
Mm,
games that also have free trials, like MMOs, for instance, I appreciate
Sure.
because then I can try the game for a bit before I feel like spending any money on it.
mhm.
And for MMOs, generally, spending money is more of an investment than just buying it once, typically.
Yes.
So I enjoy that I've like tried a bunch of them over the years, and I'm like, I don't think I like this one enough to want to pay for it. For
Sure.
instance, Final Fantasy 14 Reborn, or whatever the hell they named it
yeah.
now. In theory, yeah, it sounds neat, but then in practice, I did not like how it was set up, and I was like,
Sure. For MMOs especially, just the way that it's framed, a trial period is the only thing you can do. Because
Yeah.
I don't see how a demo of an MMO is going to work. Like, that would be
a
tricky
demo.
A demmo? Yeah,
Hmm.
perfect.
When are you gonna try Warcraft again?
I don't know.
And speaking of demos, if you would like a demo of our podcast, of this show, just go and play the first, 3 minutes again.
Yeah, exactly.
Do it again. Just listen to it again. It's fine.
Yeah.
Go ahead. It's a demo.
Take any episode that we've done and listen to the first 3 minutes. That's like a demo of the show. It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, go and do that now. And leave your comments down below about what demos you enjoyed.
Or what demos you thought did a poor job of explaining the game.
Those are more interesting, I know.